Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to the summary of chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita. Kshetragya Vibhaag Yoga. The nature, the enjoyer, and the consciousness. Today we're standing at a very important turning point in the Bhagavad Gita. Until now, Krishna has been preparing us step by step. Now he invites us to think deeply, wisely, and clearly. This chapter marks the transition into the wisdom section of the Bhagavad Gita, which is often called the Upanishadic heart of Bhagavad Gita. Let's quickly remember where we're coming from. The first chapter focused on Karam Yoga. Who am I? What is my duty in this world? How do I act responsibly while remembering God? This is called Tvam Pad Vichara, understanding yourself. And the next six chapter focus on Bhakti Yoga. Who is that Lord for whom I perform my duties? What is his nature? How does he appear everywhere in the universe, in our hearts, and all the living beings? This is called Tat Pad Vichara, understanding the Supreme. And in the last chapter, Krishna beautifully described more than 40 qualities of a true devotee and declared, such devotees are very, very dear to me. He also clarified something very important, that he exists both in form and beyond form, as the personal Lord and as the all pervading reality. Now, in chapter 13, Krishna brings everything together. He begins to explain what is this body, who is the knower of the body, who is the true enjoyer, and how do nature, soul, and supreme interact. So today we begin the journey of seeing reality as it truly is, not emotionally, not sentimentally, but wisely and clearly. So let's begin. And this chapter is called Kshetragya Vibhaag Yoga. Let's first understand these two very important words. Kshetra literally means what? A field. Just like a farm, where a farmer plows the land, sows a seed, waters them, and finally harvests crops. And Kshetragya means knower of the field, the one who understands the field completely. Think of a farmer. He knows everything about his farm, what kind of soil it has, which crops will grow and which won't, how much water is needed, when to sow, when to harvest. He has in and out knowledge of his field. And now you may be wondering, is it a BSc agriculture class or a spiritual class? Well, here comes the key point. Krishna says, Kshetra is you, your mind, your body, your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, your attachments. All of this together is Kshetra, the field. And what happens in this field depends on what we sow. And that's why we say, sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a tendency. Sow a tendency, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. This is not philosophy, this is daily life. If we sow good thoughts in the morning, they become good words, which become good action, which slowly shape a good character and eventually leads to a good destiny. But if we sow seeds of anger, greed, envy, the results will also come without fail. That's why Krishna wants us to understand this field properly. Because think about it, if I wake up with the wrong thought, the whole day is colored by that thought. I speak wrongly, I act wrongly, and by night I've become a worse version of myself. And in other words, but if I start the day well, with prayer, gratitude, good intention, I end the day peacefully. That is why we begin our day with prayer. So now comes the most important question. Who is the real Kshetragya? the knower of the field. We may say, I know my mind, but Krishna will soon reveal something deeper. He'll say, yes, the individual soul knows his body, but I am also the knower of every field. And that is where this chapter truly begins. So now we understand what Kshetra and Kshetragya means, right? So Krishna organizes this chapter in a very clear and intelligent way. The acronym of chapter 13 is WISE. And Krishna wants us to become wise, not confused. Let's quickly see what WISE stands for. W, wise questions. This chapter begins with Arjuna asking 6 deep, thoughtful questions. Not random questions, but the question that every human being asks at some point. Who am I? What is this body? Who is the real enjoyer? What is knowledge? And items of knowledge. Krishna then explains what real knowledge looks like. Not just information or book learning, but qualities like humility, tolerance, simplicity, detachment. In other words, knowledge that transforms character, not just memory. S is soul and supersoul. Next, Krishna explains who is the individual soul, the jiva, who is the supersoul, the Paramatma, the two knowers in one body, one limited and one unlimited. And the E is enjoyer. Finally, Krishna answers the biggest confusion of all. Who is the real enjoyer? Is it me or is it God? Krishna explains how misunderstanding this point bind us to suffering, and understanding it brings liberation. So in one chapter, Krishna answers, who am I? What is this body? What is knowledge? Who is God? And who is meant to enjoy? And that is why chapter 13 is not just philosophy, it is clarity. And with this wise roadmap in mind, let's now move step by step into this chapter. Start with wise questions. This section begins with 6 very deep questions asked by Arjuna. And they are not ordinary questions. These are the questions that every thoughtful human being asks at some point. Arjuna asks Krishna, what is Prakriti, material nature? What is Purusha, the enjoyer? What is Kshetra, the field of activities? Who is the Kshetragya, the knower of the field? What is Jnanam, the knowledge? What is Nayam, the object of knowledge? Krishna now takes responsibility to systematically explain all 6. From verse 2 to 7, Krishna begins with the most practical 2, Kshetra and Kshetragya. Krishna explained Kshetra is this material body, and Kshetragya is the knower of the body, the individual soul. But then Krishna makes a very powerful clarification. In verse 3, he says, not only are you the knower of the body, I am also the knower. This means the Paramatma, the Supersoul, is also present within every body as a witness and guide. So in one body, there are 2 knowers, Jiva, individual soul, and Paramatma, the Supersoul. And next, in verse 4 and 5, Krishna promises to explain in detail what the field is, who the knower is, and how to understand them properly. And then in verse 6 and 7, Krishna explains something very analytical, what this Kshetra, the body, is actually made of. He explains that a body consists of 24 material elements. What are those? You can write it down. 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. 5 knowledge acquiring senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. And 5 working senses: speech, hands, legs, anus, genitals. 5 sense objects: form, sound, smell, taste, touch. And 4 subtle elements: mind, intelligence, false ego, and the unmanifested modes of nature. Together, there are 24 elements forming the gross and the subtle body. And then Krishna adds the 25th element is the individual soul, Kshetragya, and 26th element is Paramatma, the super soul. So from the very beginning of this chapter, Krishna makes one thing clear. You are not the body. You are the knower of the body, and Krishna is the supreme knower within all bodies. With these wise questions, Krishna lays the foundation of the entire chapter. And now, having asked the right question, Krishna now moves to the next step, what the real knowledge actually looks like. Items of knowledge. Now, Krishna takes us into something very important. Here, he explains how real knowledge is acquired. Krishna does not begin by listing books, degrees, or intellectual achievements. Instead, he lists qualities of a character. Why? Because Krishna is teaching us a powerful truth. Knowledge is not something you collect, it is something you become. In these verses, Krishna describes 20 qualities. What are those? Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, detachment from excessive identification with family and possessions, freedom from unnecessary social entanglement, acceptance of the importance of self realization, and many more. Krishna then makes a strong statement. Anything apart from these qualities is ignorance. That is a very striking. So Krishna is saying you may have information, you may have memory, you may even have intelligence, but without these qualities, it is not real knowledge. Real knowledge is reflected in how we live, how we behave, how we treat others, how we see ourselves. Then comes out of the most beautiful teaching of this section. Krishna says, anyone who takes to unalloyed devotional service to the Lord does not need to separately cultivate these qualities. Why? Because bhakti automatically purifies the heart. And when devotion becomes sincere, humility comes naturally. Tolerance develops naturally. Detachment grows naturally. True knowledge is revealed within the heart of a deserving person. It is not forced. It is not manufactured. It is granted by grace. It's Krishna's mercy. So Krishna concludes this section by teaching us the real method of acquiring knowledge is the cultivation of these divine qualities. And among all of them, humanity and devotion are the foremost. And with this knowledge, let's move to the next section. Soul and supersoul. In this section, Krishna now speaks about the object of knowledge. After explaining the field, the knower of the field, and the process of knowledge, Krishna now answers the deeper question. What is that we are ultimately meant to know? First, Krishna described the individual soul. The soul is spiritual, beginningless, and eternal. It is not created at birth. It does not end at death. However, the individual soul is a subordinate. Subordinate to who? Subordinate to Krishna, the Paramatma, the Supersoul. Then Krishna elaborately described the Supersoul. He says, Supersoul has hands everywhere, legs everywhere, eyes, heads, faces, ears everywhere. This means the Lord is all pervading, present in within every heart and throughout the entire universe. In verse 15, Krishna reveals something very profound. He says, the Supersoul is unattached, yet he is a maintainer of all beings. He is beyond the modes of material nature, yet at the same time he is the master of all modes. He is subtle, beyond the reach of material senses, and therefore cannot be fully understood by ordinary perception or logic. Krishna also says, although the Supersoul appears to be divided amongst all living beings, he is never actually divided. Just like a sun appears reflected in many pots of water, yet the sun itself remains one. In this way, Krishna lists many extraordinary qualities of Supersoul, all pervading, unattached, subtle, supreme, and the maintainer of all life. Then Krishna makes a very important conclusion. He says, only one category of people can truly understand all of this. Who are they? My Ananya Bhaktas, my exclusive devotees. Only devotees can truly understand Kshetra, the field, Kshetragya, the knower, Jnanam, the process of knowledge, Nayam, the object of knowledge. Because knowledge is not grasped by intellect alone, it is revealed from devotion. With this, Krishna is going to prepare us for the next section. Who is the real enjoyer? E, enjoyer. And in this final section, Krishna speaks about Prakriti, Purusha, and their interaction. By now, we understand that the Prakriti is material nature, the ingredients that makes up this body and this world. And there are two Purushas. One Purusha is us, the individual being, living entity, the Jiva. But Krishna makes it very clear we are not the real enjoyer. The real Purusha is Paramatma, the super soul. The living entity tries to control and enjoy material nature. And this desire to enjoy independently is the cause of all suffering in the world. Material nature provides the cause and effects, and the living entity, due to association with Prakriti, moves through good and bad, happiness and distress, and takes different bodies in different species of life. Krishna explains that the soul enjoys the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And because of this association, the soul experiences the birth after birth. Towards the end of this chapter, Krishna introduces a very important term, Jnana Chakshu, the eyes of knowledge. A person with Jnana Chakshu can see things as they truly are. Such a person understands that every living being is a combination of Prakriti and Purusha. The Jiva, the Prakriti, and the Paramatma are three distinct realities. The soul is not the doer. The body acts according to the modes of nature. Soul merely desires and witnesses. And this is the powerful conclusion. Soul does not act, the body acts. Soul does not suffer, it identifies with suffering. And then knowledge arises. This false identification slowly dissolves. In this way, Krishna gives a beautiful and complete philosophical picture of the material nature, the individual soul, and the supersoul. Now, the message of the Gita is actually very simple, and that is always think of Krishna and never forgets him. But when Krishna begins analyzing the universe, the gods, ourselves, the knowledge can sometimes feel complex. And that is okay. We should never lose patience while reading the Gita. Krishna is explaining the entire universe, and to fully understand this in few readings may be a little ambitious. You may listen to my video a few times to understand it. It takes time. It takes devotional service. Only when one serves does this knowledge truly settle in the heart. Let me share a small story. Once a saint asked his disciple to fetch a water in a bucket. The disciple ran to the river, filled the bucket, but there were holes in it. By the time he returned, the bucket was empty. Saint said, "Go again." He ran faster, still empty. He did it for a third time, still empty. The disciple became frustrated and said, "Guruji, the water keeps escaping." The saint smiled and said, "I never wanted the water. I wanted the bucket to become clean. I wanted the bucket to become clean." In the same way, sometimes we read the Gita and the knowledge seems to go in one ear and out the other. We forget what we read. We forget what we heard. But it doesn't matter because the heart is being cleansed. Just like the water escapes, but the bucket becomes clean, the knowledge may not stay immediately, but the transformation is happening within us. Before we close chapter 13, let us pause for a very simple reflection. Krishna has given us a powerful way to look at ourselves, not just philosophically, but practically. First, his mind and body are the field, Kshetra. Thoughts arise here, desire grow here, and action happen here. Correct? Second, I am not the field. I am the knower of the field, the Kshetragya. I am the one who's aware, the conscious observer behind the body and the mind. And the third, I am never alone. Krishna, as a super soul, is also present within this field, watching, guiding, remembering even when I forget. So every moment of life has these three players: the body, the soul, and Krishna within our heart. And when we forget, we struggle. And when we remember this, clarity begins. So, chapter 13 is not meant to confuse us, it is meant to free us. As we conclude chapter 13, Krishna has helped us clearly. We now understand the difference between the field, the knower of the field, between the body, the soul, and the super soul within the heart. This clarity is important because without knowing who we are, we cannot know how we should live. Now, in the next chapter, Krishna takes this understanding one step deeper. In chapter 14, he introduces the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. These three forces shape our thoughts, our choices, our habits, and even our destiny. We will learn why we behave differently, why people behave differently, why happiness comes and goes, and most importantly, how to rise above these modes and move closer to pure devotion. So, having understood the field and the knower, we can now understand the forces that binds the field. Let us continue this journey as Krishna reveals the science of these three modes of in chapter 14, the modes of the material nature. Until next time, keep chanting Hare Krishna,